Have you ever wondered why you know all the right things, yet your life remains the same? It's not for a lack of motivation. It's not a streak of bad luck. It's because you haven't truly mastered yourself. In this video from Stoic Quotes, we are stripping away the surface to reach the core of Stoic philosophy, self-mastery, discipline, character habits, challenges, and inner freedom. This isn't about cheap comfort. This isn't about empty inspiration. These are blunt, sometimes uncomfortable truths strong enough to wake you up. This is for those who are tired of blaming, tired of waiting for circumstances to change, and are finally ready to take full ownership of their lives. If you're looking for a path that doesn't make life easier but makes you stronger, then stay with us. I have curated 30 profound insights to highlight today's theme: Aristotle's forgotten laws of greatness. I've categorized them into 8 distinct pillars to illuminate the true essence of this philosophy. To my fellow seekers of ancient wisdom, if you're ready, let's dive deep and uncover the power behind these quotes. I begin with self-mastery and discipline, realizing a truth that is remarkably simple yet difficult to accept. Most human suffering does not stem from a lack of opportunity, but from a failure to command oneself. People often think that life improves when circumstances change, but the Stoics taught me the opposite. Life only truly transforms when a person changes how they confront themselves. The first principle: greatness begins with the mastery of oneself before the conquest of the world, is one I have returned to countless times, especially during phases of helplessness. Greatness here is not about being admired by others, nor is it about being superior to anyone. Greatness in the Stoic sense is the refusal to be dragged along by desire, fear, sloth, or anger. Before thinking of changing the world, one must learn to keep their inner self from collapsing. I once hoped that if only circumstances were better, everything would be fine. But then I understood if I cannot master myself, then no matter what situation I am placed in, I will eventually ruin it. To those at the bottom of hardship, I want to say that you do not need to conquer your entire life right now. Simply beginning by not allowing yourself to give up today is already a very real form of greatness. When reading the sentence, "A brilliant mind without discipline is like a sharp sword without a handle," I cannot help but think of many who are intelligent yet miserable. Intellect, if lacking discipline, cannot save a person. It even makes the pain more sophisticated. A sharp blade without a hilt will wound the one holding it before it ever touches any opponent. I was once a person of many thoughts, many plans, and many ideals, but lacked the capacity to compel myself to do what needed to be done. I convinced myself with very logical, very smart reasons to procrastinate and to evade. Stoicism does not deny intellect, but it reminds me that intellect only holds value when guided by discipline. If you feel you know many right things but cannot live by them, the problem is not a lack of knowledge, but that you are not yet serious enough with yourself. The quote, "He who rules his emotions commands his future," strikes directly at one of humanity's greatest weaknesses. I have learned that emotions are not the enemy, but letting emotions dictate actions is a catastrophe. In anger, men speak things that cannot be retracted. In fear, they abandon what should have been kept. In despair, they convince themselves that all effort is futile. Stoicism does not require me to become cold. It requires me to be sober-minded. I have learned to view emotion like a wave. It comes, it is strong, but it will also pass. My future is not decided by fleeting feelings, but by how I conduct myself while those feelings are surging. To those being drowned by emotion, I want to say that you are not wrong to feel pain, but you will harm yourself if you let that pain steer your life. Regarding the sentence, "Discipline today is freedom tomorrow," I once resisted it. I thought discipline was a loss of freedom. But the longer I live, the more I see that those with the least discipline are the ones most enslaved. They are bound by bad habits, by procrastination, and by the anxiety of a future that they themselves are sabotaging every day. Discipline from a Stoic perspective is not self-mortification, but a conscious choice to endure hardship today so as not to pay the price many times over tomorrow. When you wake up a little earlier, when you complete what needs to be done despite having no motivation, you are creating a form of freedom that no one can grant you. To the weary, I do not advise you to change your entire life. I only advise you to keep one small promise to yourself today. Freedom begins there. The final quote of this group, "The man who conquers himself needs no enemy," is one that leaves me in silence for a long time every time I reread it. As long as a man is busy pointing his finger outward, he is not brave enough to look inward. Stoicism showed me that the most dangerous part is not the person blocking my path, but the weak habits I indulge within myself. When I learn to win over myself, the attacks of others no longer cause me to lose my way. When I maintain discipline and self-mastery, I have no need to prove anything to anyone. To those who feel they are being treated unfairly by life, I only want to say, you do not need an enemy to become strong. You only need to refuse to betray yourself. This group of self-mastery and discipline to me is not a philosophical chapter. It is the foundation so that a person does not shatter when life does not go as planned. As long as you maintain mastery over yourself, you still have a path to walk. When you lose that, no success can save you. I continue with the second group virtue character and honor because once a person learns how to keep themselves from dissolving from within, the next question is no longer how strong am I, but what kind of person am I becoming? The Stoics always remind me that strength without virtue is merely a form of disguised danger. A person can go very far through talent, but they can only endure for long through character. The phrase "character is destiny." Without virtue, success is only an accident, once unsettled me for. It leaves no room for self-pity. It states bluntly that a person's fate does not lie in the hands of luck, but in the choices repeated so often they become character. I have seen those who achieve success rapidly, only to collapse just as fast, not because they lacked ability, but because they lacked a moral pillar strong enough to support them. Stoicism makes me understand that if success is not built upon virtue, it is not an inevitable result of who you are, but merely a temporary accident of circumstance. To those who are failing and feel inadequate, I want to say that character remains as a silent asset. If you use this difficult time to refine your way of living, you are sowing a different destiny for yourself. When reflecting on a life without meaning is merely existence, not living, I realize that many people do not truly live. They merely prolong their existence. They wake, work, eat, and sleep, yet do not know why they must continue. The Stoics do not hand me a ready-made meaning. They force me to take responsibility for finding it. A life without meaning is not necessarily a grand tragedy. It is a slow attrition where a person loses their vital spark without realizing it. If you are feeling empty, the problem may not be a lack of joy, but that you have not yet found something worthy of enduring. When a person has a reason deep enough to live for, they can withstand many things that seem impossible. Honor appears in the sentence, "Honor is chosen long before it is tested," and this is one of the sternest truths the Stoics left behind. Honor is not decided in a heroic moment, but in very ordinary days when no one is watching, when there is no reward, and when there is no praise. I used to think I would live virtuously when placed in a great situation, but then I realized that if I am willing to compromise my conscience in small matters, I will have nothing to stand on when the true trial arrives. To those who feel weak, I do not advise you to do something grand. I only advise you not to do what you would be ashamed of when looking back. Honor is built from such moments. The quote, "Success that costs integrity is failure in disguise," is a warning. I wish I had understood sooner. Life offers many shortcuts, and most of them demand a price that is not clearly stated. When you trade your integrity to get what you want, you may win in the short term, but you lose within your own being. Stoicism does not romanticize poverty, but it does not worship success at any cost. I have seen people achieve what they dreamed of, only to wake up each day feeling a little smaller. If you are being tempted by easy choices that go against your conscience, remember that no success is worth having if you no longer respect yourself. And then virtue is practiced in private before it is praised in public, closes this group with a very profound stillness. Virtue to a Stoic is not something for display. It is how you conduct yourself when there are no witnesses, when there is no direct benefit, and when no one forces you to do the right thing. I have learned that the most steadfast people are often those who speak the least about their morality. They have no need to prove anything, for their way of life is the answer itself. To those who feel unacknowledged, I want to say that true value needs no audience. It exists nonetheless, and it is silently shaping the person you are becoming. This group of virtue, character, and honor does not promise me an easy life. It promises me a life that when I look back, I do not have to turn my face away. In my weakest moments, I realize that maintaining one's character is sometimes the only victory that matters. And strangely, when a person no longer fears the loss of their integrity, they no longer fear failure quite so much. I moved to the third group, habits and daily practice, with a sense of deep familiarity. This is the part most often overlooked, for it lacks drama, lacks loftiness, and does not bear the silhouette of grand decisions. Yet it is within the monotonous repetition of daily life that a human being is either elevated bit by bit or eroded without realizing it. Stoicism makes me understand that destiny is not decided on those rare days of upheaval, but on days so similar that we mistake them for being harmless. When I read the sentence, "True excellence is not an act, but a habit repeated daily," I recall the times I spent waiting for a grand spark to change my life. I thought that with just one strong enough decision, or one day of sufficient resolve, everything would be different. But life does not operate that way. Excellence through the Stoic lens is not a moment of brilliance, but a quiet perseverance. No one becomes steadfast by standing tall once. They stand tall because every day they remind themselves not to bow before petty temptations. To those discouraged by a perceived lack of progress, I say, do not ask why you are not yet excellent. Ask what you have repeated today. The quote, "The soul is shaped by what it repeatedly does," made me realize that the soul is not an abstract thing. It is very concrete. It is sculpted by the things we do when no one forces us, by how we spend our leisure time, and by the small choices we deem inconsequential. I once thought small habits were unimportant, but then I saw that they are exactly what decides who I become when no one is watching. If every day you choose to procrastinate, your soul learns to evade. If every day you choose to confront, your soul learns to stand firm. To those who feel themselves growing weaker, look back at what you are repeating. This is not for self-reproach, but an opportunity to begin anew. The sentence, "A great life is a collection of small, noble choices," completely altered my view of greatness. I used to think a life worth living must have grand milestones and achievements recognized by others. But the Stoics taught me that a great life can appear very ordinary from the outside. It is forged from honest choices when no one knows, from keeping small promises to oneself, and from treating others with kindness, even when there is no benefit. To those feeling insecure because they have yet to achieve something grand, I say, do not disdain the small choices of today. It is they that are silently writing the long story of your life. Regarding mastery requires sacrifice. Greatness demands devotion. Stoicism leaves me with no illusions. No mastery comes from comfort. No greatness is built without giving something up. I once wanted to progress without sacrifice, to be better without enduring inconvenience. But life does not indulge such desires. When you devote time to what is meaningful, you must withdraw time from what is meaningless. When you wish to master a skill, you must accept days of boredom, repetition, and sometimes frustration. To those weary from feeling they must give up too much, I say, sacrifice only becomes bitter when you do not know what you are sacrificing for. When there is devotion, the price paid becomes purposeful. The group on habits in daily life teaches me a very blunt lesson. There is no secret path to a good life. Everything passes through very ordinary days. If you feel your life is lackluster or stagnant, it is likely you do not need a grand decision, but a right habit repeated long enough. The Stoics do not promise rapid change. They promise that if you are patient with small things, your life will transform in the most sustainable way possible. I move to the fourth group, wisdom and inner mind, with a very real sense of reservation. For this is where Stoicism ceases to speak of our external actions and begins to address the invisible world within each of us. I have learned that if that internal world is in chaos, then no matter how stable one's external life may be, peace will remain elusive. Conversely, when order is established within a person can stand firm, even in the harshest of circumstances. The phrase wisdom grows when pride shrinks once unsettled me more than I care to admit. The human ego is remarkably subtle. It manifests not only when we boast, but also when we believe we have understood enough, known enough, and need not listen further. I used to carry many rigid beliefs, calling them principles. Yet I realized that many of them were merely the ego dressed in the robes of intellect. Stoicism taught me that wisdom does not grow by accumulating more knowledge, but by having the courage to dismantle the illusions of one's own understanding. When the ego shrinks, the mind finally finds room to open to those who feel stuck. Perhaps the issue is not a lack of answers, but that you are clinging too tightly to things you no longer dare to doubt. Reading, a man becomes what he contemplates. I began to pay attention to the silent monologues within my head. A person does not become what they think in a single day, but over the course of years. If you constantly think you are helpless, you will gradually act like a helpless person. If you nurture bitter thoughts, the world in your eyes will become equally bitter. Stoicism does not ask me to engage in superficial positive thinking. It demands that I take responsibility for what I allow to dwell in my mind. To those drowning in negative thoughts, I do not advise you to immediately think differently. I simply advise you to observe those thoughts as one observes a habit for thought, like action is something that can be trained. The quote, "The fearful mind invents limits that do not exist," made me realize that many barriers in my life never truly existed. They were created by the fear of rejection, the fear of failure, and the fear of judgment. I once avoided many opportunities not because I lacked the ability, but because I had already concluded that I would fail. The Stoics do not deny danger, but they distinguish clearly between real danger and imagined fear. When the mind is dominated by fear, it draws boundaries for self-protection, but the price paid is the gradual shrinking of one's life. To those standing at the threshold of hesitation, I want to say that it is very likely what holds you back is not your circumstance, but an assumption that has never been tested. Then I paused for a long time, as silence is where character speaks the loudest. In a noisy world where everyone seeks to be heard, the Stoics remind me that silence is not evasion, but confrontation. In silence, there is no audience, no recognition, and one is forced to hear oneself. I had periods where I feared silence, because within it, I heard clearly the contradictions, the weaknesses, and the things I tried to ignore while busy. Yet it is precisely in those silences that I learned who I truly am. To those feeling lost, I do not advise you to seek more noise. I advise you to try staying with the silence a little longer. There, your character will speak for itself with absolute clarity. The group on wisdom and inner mind does not offer immediate comfort. It forces me to observe, to slow down, and to be serious about what occurs within my head. But in return, it grants me something precious, the ability not to be swept away by every fleeting thought. When a person learns to observe their mind rather than identify with it, they gain a profound space of freedom. And in that space, they begin to live more consciously, more calmly, and less vulnerable to things that do not matter. I continue with the fifth group, struggle, fortitude, and mental strength. For this is where Stoicism does not comfort man with gentle words, but looks directly at the reality of life. Suffering, hardship, and obstacles are not rare accidents. They are part of the very structure of human existence. The Stoic does not ask how to avoid suffering. They ask how to keep suffering from corrupting their soul. The phrase, "the measure of a man is found not in comfort, but in challenge," forced me to re-examine many evaluations I once held about myself and others. When everything goes smoothly, anyone can appear kind, calm, and principled. But only when facing challenge does a person reveal what truly sustains them from within. I once placed high value on a quiet life, with few storms, until I realized that prolonged tranquility made me fragile. Stoicism taught me that challenge is not for boasting, but it is the most honest yardstick. To those being pressed by life, I want to say that you are not inadequate because you are in pain. In this very circumstance, your true essence is being forged. The quote, "Patience is the invisible strength of the great," speaks of a type of power that is very hard to recognize, especially in an era where everything must be fast. Patience is not enduring in resentment, but the ability to remain with a process without dismantling it. I used to be impatient, wanting every effort to yield immediate results. And it was that very haste that exhausted me. Stoicism makes me understand that enduring things usually progress very slowly, almost imperceptibly from day to day. To those discouraged by a lack of visible results, I want to say that if you are moving in the right direction, not having arrived yet does not mean you are failing. Patience is the strength that keeps you from quitting halfway. The sentence, "courage is not loud. It is steady," changed my view of bravery. I used to think courage had to be powerful, overt, and demonstrative. But the Stoics show me a different image. Courage is continuing to walk when there is no motivation, holding firm to principles when no one cheers, and standing tall, even when no one is watching. Courage does not need applause, for it does not seek recognition. To those quietly enduring, I want to say that your silence is not weakness. It may be the sign of a strength being tempered. Upon reaching comfort is the enemy of strength. I realize this is not a call to live in austerity, but a warning. Prolonged ease robs a human of the capacity to endure. I used to avoid difficult tasks, choosing familiar paths and calling it safety. But gradually, I found myself more fearful, less flexible, and more prone to collapse before minor disturbances. Stoicism does not require me to renounce all amenities. It demands that I do not let comfort wither my fortitude. To those who feel themselves growing weaker without understanding why, look and see if you are avoiding every inconvenience. The final quote, "To avoid struggle is, to avoid becoming," is a very blunt conclusion. Evading hardship does not keep a person whole. It keeps them unfinished. I used to postpone difficult decisions for fear of loss or mistake, but the price I paid was prolonged stagnation. Stoicism taught me that a person only becomes themselves when they dare to pass through things that are not pleasant. To those facing difficult choices, I do not dare say the road ahead will be light, but I can say that if you turn your back on the challenge, you are also turning your back on your own capacity to grow. The group on struggle, fortitude, and mental strength does not offer a sense of security. It offers the truth. And the truth is, life will not stop presenting challenges whether you are ready or not. But when you understand that hardship is not a sign that you are on the wrong path, but an essential part of the process of becoming, you no longer view the challenge as an enemy. You begin to see it as a harsh but necessary teacher. I proceed with the sixth group, purpose and the meaning of life, because once a person has learned self-mastery, preserved their character, built habits, refined their mind, and moved through challenge, an unavoidable question emerges. What is the ultimate reason for enduring all of this? Without a sufficiently profound answer to that question, every discipline will soon become a burden. Every effort will deplete the will, and suffering will transform into resentment. The observation, those who seek pleasure alone will find emptiness. Those who seek purpose will find greatness, is cold, yet profoundly accurate. I once believed that if I could avoid suffering and accumulate enough pleasure, life would be well. But the longer I live, the more I realize that pleasure only offers temporary relief, leaving behind an even larger void. The Stoics do not condemn joy. They merely warn that if joy is the sole objective, a person will soon feel hollow. Purpose is different. Purpose is not always pleasant, but it allows a person to endure without bitterness. To those who feel their lives are empty despite a lack of nothing in the way of comfort, I say perhaps you do not lack things to enjoy, but rather something to strive for with your entire being. The quote, "Knowledge without action is comfort without growth," strikes directly at a common trap. I used to read, much understand much, and speak eloquently about what is right. Yet, my life changed very little. Knowledge, if it remains only in the head, becomes a sophisticated form of solace. It makes us feel as though we are progressing, while in reality, we remain stationary. The Stoics do not value knowledge as a collection. They value it as a tool for living. To those who feel they learn much, yet never improve, I do not advise you to learn more. I advise you to take one small thing you already know and put it into practice, however inconvenient it may be. Growth is always accompanied by discomfort. When reflecting on happiness follows purpose, not pleasure, I realize that happiness is not something we can pursue directly. Every time I try to grasp it, it slips through my fingers. But during the periods when I focus on living in accordance with what I believe to be meaningful, happiness appears as a natural, quiet consequence. Stoicism made me understand that happiness is not a reward for evading pain, but the mental state of one who is moving in the right direction. To those in despair because they cannot find happiness, I say, perhaps you are asking the wrong question. Instead of asking how to be more cheerful, ask what you are living for. The sentence, "Purpose turns suffering into strength," is one I return to most often when life grows heavy. Suffering in itself is not noble, it is simply suffering. But when a person understands why they must endure that pain, no longer destroys them from within. I have witnessed those who suffer great loss without becoming bitter, and I have seen those who face minor difficulties and collapse entirely. The difference lies not in the degree of suffering, but in whether or not they possess a purpose. To those in circumstances you cannot immediately change, I say, if you find a reason deep enough to continue, your pain will no longer be a meaningless weight. It becomes the raw material for tempering your spiritual strength. This group on purpose and meaning does not promise me an easy life. It promises me a life worth enduring. The Stoics do not comfort man by saying everything will be fine. They remind him that if he knows what he is living for, he can move through many things that are not fine without losing himself. When the purpose is clear enough, suffering does not vanish, but it no longer decides whether you fall or stand. I continue with the seventh group, humility, stillness, and the quiet path, because after all the effort, discipline, endurance, and purpose, a person easily falls into a subtle temptation, the craving to be seen, to be recognized, and to be applauded. The Stoics understood this well. Thus, they dedicated an entire portion to reminding us to return to silence, the place where true value is formed. Reading the sentence, "Greatness is built quietly far from the noise of applause," I realized that many of the finest things in my life did not occur before anyone's eyes. They took place in silent evenings and decisions known to no one, and in moments when I chose to do the right thing despite no immediate reward. The modern world convinces us that if something is not seen, it does not exist. But Stoicism teaches me the opposite. Things that require applause to exist are rarely enduring. To those who feel they are striving immensely without recognition, I say, perhaps you are building something of genuine value. Greatness requires time, and it is never loud. The phrase greatness is not given by the world. It is earned. Against it makes me understand that if you live only for the world's recognition, you will always be its slave. Stoicism does not encourage opposition for the sake of rebellion, but emphasizes that a person must possess an internal standard higher than that of the crowd. The world changes rapidly. Values hailed today may be forgotten tomorrow. If you anchor your self-worth in external validation, you will forever be anxious. I once lived that way, and I grew weary of it. Only when I began to live according to what I believed was right, even when unheralded, did I feel relief. To those feeling out of place because they do not follow the majority, remember that many righteous things began in solitude. In this group, the quote, "Wisdom grows when pride shrinks," returns, but this time I view it under the light of humility. A large ego makes a person want to be superior to others, to prove themselves, and to win every dialogue. But true wisdom needs to defeat no one. It only needs to be honest. I once argued relentlessly, defending my views fiercely, only to realize I was not seeking truth. I was defending my ego. When the ego shrinks, I hear more, learn more, and find more peace. To those exhausted from proving themselves right, I say, you do not need to win to live rightly. You only need to be truthful with yourself. Humility in the Stoic sense is not self-deprecation. It is a clear understanding of one's own limits. I do not know everything, I cannot control everything, and I do not need to. This acceptance does not make me weak. It makes me more steadfast. When a person ceases to place themselves at the center of all things, they begin to see the world more clearly. To those stressed because they want everything to go their way, try taking a step back. Not every battle needs to be joined, and not every voice needs a response. Stillness to me is no longer a terrifying void, but a sanctuary for the spirit. In stillness, I need not play a role, need not impress, and need not become someone else. I only need to be myself, complete with all my flaws. And it is there that a human truly recovers. To those exhausted from constant performance, I say you do not need to prove your worth every day. True value is not depleted by silence. The group on humility and the quiet path teaches me that being slow is not losing, and being unknown is not being meaningless. Many precious things must be sheltered from the spotlight too early. When a person accepts growing in silence, they no longer live to be praised, but live so as not to despise themselves. And that is a very profound form of freedom. I enter the final group, personal responsibility and inner freedom, with a feeling quite different from the previous sections. If the earlier parts helped a human being grow stronger, deeper, and more steadfast, then this section strips away the thing many still cling to, most the role of the victim. Stoicism does not allow me to hide behind circumstances, fate, or the mistakes of others. It sets me upright before life and declares that which belongs to me I must claim. The quote, "He who blames others surrenders power over his own life," is one of the hardest to swallow, yet also the most liberating. Blame offers a swift momentary relief. When the fault lies with another, I no longer have to act. But in that very moment, I hand over my entire power to them. Stoicism made me understand that every time I blame, I am saying something very dangerous, that my life lies in the hands of others. I have been in difficult situations, I have been treated unfairly, and I have been misunderstood. I know those feelings are not small, but the Stoics do not deny the pain. They simply ask one blunt question after all, that what will you do with the rest of your life? To those trapped in resentment, I say you have the right to hurt, but if you remain in blame, you remain in helplessness. When looking back at discipline today is freedom tomorrow in the light of inner freedom. I truly understand its full meaning. The freedom of which the Stoics speak is not the liberty to do whatever one pleases. It is freedom from destructive impulses, from self-sabotaging habits, and from the compulsion to react to circumstances. A person without discipline thinks they are free, but in truth they are dragged along by emotion, by desire, and by fear. I lived that way, and I was exhausted. When I began to set boundaries for myself, I found myself lighter. To those who feel they have no control over their lives, perhaps the problem is not a lack of opportunity, but that you have yet to reclaim the right to govern yourself. Personal responsibility in Stoicism is not self-reproach, it is sobriety. I am responsible for my choices even when they are made in unfair circumstances. This may sound harsh, but it grants immense power. For if I am responsible, I also have the power to change. If I am merely a victim, I can do nothing but wait. To those who feel their lives are frozen, I say, even if you cannot control what has happened, you still control the next step. And that step is enough to change the direction of an entire life. Inner freedom does not come from the world treating us more fairly. It comes from a human being no longer allowing the world to decide their worth. When I stopped waiting for others to understand me, recognize me, or treat me rightly, I felt a weight lift. Not because I do not care for justice, but because I no longer let the absence of justice destroy my eternal life. The Stoics do not teach indifference. They teach the clear distinction between what is within my control and what is not. And in that distinction, I find freedom. This final group does not offer comfort. It strips away every excuse. But because of that, it restores the most precious thing, the sovereignty over one's own life. When a person stops blaming, stops waiting, and stops seeking salvation from the outside, they stand up in a very quiet way. Not loud, not dramatic, but unshakable. If I must close this entire series of reflections with one single truth, it is this: Stoicism does not promise me a life without suffering. It gives me a life in which, no matter how much I suffer, I still do not lose myself. And as long as a person retains the power to choose their attitude, their action, and their character, they have never truly lost their freedom. If you've made it to the end of this video, you've probably realized one thing clearly. Stoic philosophy doesn't promise an easy life. It offers the strength to stand firm when life is not. What you've just heard isn't meant to entertain, nor to make you feel better for a moment. It's meant to be reflected on, lived with, and returned to whenever you feel yourself losing direction. Stoic Quotes was created for those who are not seeking applause, but true inner strength found in discipline, in silence, and in personal responsibility. If these words resonated with you, consider subscribing to Stoic Quotes and staying with us. Not to change the world overnight, but to ensure that each day you do not betray yourself. Until next time, in stillness and in your next deliberate choice.